بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله السلام الله عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone and this is a special Ramadan. It feels special. Every Ramadan feels special. It's amazing how when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us to do something, in particular in this month of Ramadan to fast, it's like a light switch. We all just start fasting. Even some of us that maybe didn't fast the whole year except for the Ramadan before, Ramadan comes and we start fasting. And it's the barakah, the great blessings of this month of Ramadan. And during this month, we're going to spend some time, we're going to spend some moments with the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. We're just going to reflect on certain aspects of his life and the practical lessons that we can take. And so, as a parent, I very often look at the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, to teach me how to deal with my teens and my young boys. I have four boys at home, and anyone that's a parent out there listening to this, you know how much patience you need to have with your children. And so the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, he taught us how to deal with teens. And so there's a story, it's an amazing story about a Sahabi by the name of Abu Mahdhura. And the Prophet, ﷺ, as the story goes, was traveling with the companions, and the adhan was being called. It was time for prayer. And Abu Mahdhura was about 12 years old, and he's there with a group of his rowdy teenage friends, and they hear the adhan, and they start making fun of it. And so they start, singing different songs and making fun of the adhan. But Abu Mahdhura was the primary person doing this, and he himself had a very beautiful voice. This 12-year-old kid making fun of the adhan in the presence of the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Oh, big problem. So what happens after the salah? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam calls all those young people over. Come here. And you can imagine, you probably have some rowdy kids at your masjid, and they think it's all cool, it's fun. And then when they get called up to the front, and now they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're in big trouble now. And that's what happened there. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he asked them, which one of you was making fun of the adhan? And so Abu Mahdhura says all of his friends sold him out. they all pointed to him. And so the Prophet ﷺ says to the rest, okay, go. You stay here. And he recognizes Abu Mahdhura's beautiful, beautiful voice. So he teaches Abu Mahdhura the adhan. He says, repeat after me. And then stand up and call the adhan. And so Abu Mahdhura says, there was no one more hated to me at the time than the Messenger of God, Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. But I called the adhan and I did what he asked me to do. And then after he calls the adhan, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam sits him down and he puts his blessed hand on the forehead of Abu Mahdhura and he makes dua for him and he rubs his blessed hand down to his heart and down to his tummy. And Abu Mahdhura says that all of the hatred that I had for the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, left my heart, and I was filled with love of him because the Prophet ﷺ was rubbing and touching and making dua for him. And so Abu Mahdhura, from that point at 12 years old, for the next 50 years, is the mu'adhin of the Prophet ﷺ. And he says because of the barakah of where the Prophet ﷺ put his hand, he never cut that part of his hair. And so the Prophet ﷺ completely transformed Abu Mahdhura, this young, rowdy teen, without raising his voice, without yelling at him, or without disciplining him. And very often as parents, when our teens do something that's very silly, what do we typically do? We fight fire with fire. And then what do we have? We have a raging inferno. And the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam is teaching us that's not the way to handle the situation. Remember, as parents, our role is to help our kids grow. And especially if you've got teenage boys. I don't have girls. Someone else can possibly give you advice on what it's like to raise young girls. I'm not that person. I have boys. And what I can tell you about boys is, especially when they're in the teenage years, the testosterone is kicking in. They want their independence. They want this and they want that. And so you're going to have moments that are going to be challenging. Let's not make them more challenging. Our job as parents is to help them learn proper behavior by just calming the circumstances down. So instead of fighting fire with fire, fight fire with water. Just put it out. And that requires that we as parents are in a state capable of doing so. And so if your teenage kid says something really silly or does something unfortunate, you don't have to flip out at them right away. Just very calmly speak to them, very calmly talk to them, and try to lead them to a better place with your beautiful patience. It's not easy. No one says it's easy. But wallahi, what I've noticed in life when I started to implement this way of the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama, of fighting fire with water, it's gotten me and my kids to a much better relationship. And it's gotten us to a place that we need to go to, as opposed to getting into a major fight, blowing up the house, and not speaking to each other for a few days. So if we look at these moments with the Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama, he teaches us how to deal with teens. He teaches us how to deal with kids in the most beautiful of fashions. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us just a drop of the hikmah and the wisdom of the Messenger of God sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi as we deal with our young children at home.